Welcome to Espiritu Coffee Chats. I'm Valerie, co-founder of Surge Coffee Co., a specialty coffee business rooted in culture, community, and connection.
And I'm Arlene, founder of Lunasol Wellness, where I guide people through holistic interior design, astrology, human design, and spiritual alignment.
Before every episode, we start with a cacao ritual, a moment to slow down, connect, and pour into ourselves before diving into deep conversations.
This podcast is our space to explore herbalism, spirituality, entrepreneurship, and the everyday magic of being Latinas navigating life on our own terms.
So grab your cafecito or your cacao and join us for real talk, soul connections, and a little bit of magic along the way.
Enjoy. Welcome back. We are leading you into part 2 of the deep dive that Valerie and I did for the astrology and Trump episode as we dive into his human design and astrology charts. If you haven't listened to part 1, go take a peek at that and get your popcorn out.
There's lots of information there, so definitely go to episode 1 so you can be informed and get the hang of it and the flow of what we're covering in episode 2.
Now, the curtain's open for episode 2. So, definitely give yourself time and space, Donald Trump. The last thing that I wanted to touch on, because we'll be here for like hours if I go through his whole chart, but he has his ego center defined. And his ego center is defined, that means that his heart center is defined in human design. So when your ego center is defined, you have this natural will of being motivated by what you want and what you desire. And that's not a bad thing. I have my ego defined. I don't remember if you do.
I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look.
But when your ego is defined, you're driven, you're very self-motivated by what you desire. So like for me, I want something, I already know this about myself. I'm going to go get it, right? But the shadow side of that is like, will you step on people's toes to get it? You know, how much, like when do you pull that motivation and that desire back a little bit? Because have you ever seen somebody who's so motivated, like they will be like a bull running out of the gates and they don't care who they trample over? That's kind of where a person who has a defined ego has to learn how to balance that out. Because it's great to have that, you know, to say I want, because you're meant to in this lifetime be driven by what you want. But there's always that fine line. And he has this gate 26. And gate 26 is attached to gate 44. When those two come together in their chart, I'll put up Trump's chart here in a minute. I'll also put it on screen later on. But anyways, so gate 26 is coming out of the ego center. And gate 40, I have this too, gate 44 is on the other side of that. And so it's in the splenic center. And the splenic center is about using your intuition. It's also the center that houses fears. So you have his ego center, which is all about desire, motivation, and what he wants, and his willpower. Anybody who has that defined. And then the spleen center is about, you know, your intuition, your instincts, and also your fears can be housed in that center as well. So he has this, there's a channel called 44 in 26. When those two meet together, they become a channel. That channel is called the channel of the enterprise. Anytime I see this channel in somebody's chart from doing a human design reading, I'm like, ooh, they are destined to be an entrepreneur. They're destined to either lead a business. They're destined to do something with like sales, let's just say. Now, unfortunately, Donald Trump does not have the whole channel. He's missing gate 44. He needs me because I have the full gate. I have gate 26 and gate 44. So I definitely know this energy. I know that I've always wanted to be a business owner. I do not ever want to work for anybody else. Anytime I was, like, can I be the boss? How can I move to the top? And then even then, I was like, no, you can't tell me what to do. No, I'm going to go, no. Let me just go start my own stuff. So that's that energy of that gate 2644. It doesn't mean you have to be a boss or an entrepreneur. It just means like you need to be able to be at the top of something of your, whether it's your company or whatever it is, or managing in a sense, because you have a natural knack for sales. And you're also going to have a natural knack of knowing what's good for people. So the knowing what's good for people comes from gate 44. The sales part comes from gate 26. Donald Trump has the gate 26 part. Now the tricky thing is when somebody has only that part, I like to use this, I use this as an analogy in my human design chart readings when somebody has this channel. or gates or whatever, gate 26 or gate 44. I always talk about the car salesman because this is like the car salesman basically channel. Yeah. You know, you own your own car sales lot, right? And so somebody comes up from your car lot, and if you have a full channel, you're like, oh my God, here comes this family. And then the dad comes and the dad's like, I was going to say Tesla. Okay, I want a Tesla. And I want the one that has the seat in the back, right? And he has a family of 5, right? And, and then the salesman is like, dude, no, you need a van. Mm-hmm. You need a van. Let me show you what you really need versus what you want, right? And let me come from a perspective of, or it's even like this, like, they don't want to sell you a lemon. Mm-hmm. A true good salesman wants to give you exactly what you need and what you want, and they want to sell from integrity. Even though they have to get rid of a car, right, that is old and beat up and that's been used, but would it be right for them to sell you that car knowing that it's going to break down at some point, right? So that's where that whole sleazy salesman comes from, is that, not selling from integrity and from a good place, right? So Donald Trump only has the one that wants to sell. So if there was somebody that's going to come to his sales lot, he's going to be like, here's this shitty ass car. It looks nice, right? Because he knows how to, oh, look, it has good rims and it has this and it has that. And even though it's used, it's great. You should take it. You get another car. Your family could just get another car. That's something that he would probably say too. Like, take this one. What's wrong? Think about yourself. What do you want, Dad? Not thinking about what the dad and the family and everybody else really needs, right? Look at me, I'm being such a jerk. So rather than if he had the other gate 44, he would have a checks and balance of like, oh, geez, I do need to pay my bills. Should I sell them this? Nah, you know what? I got to think about the future, because gate 44 is about the future. Because remember, there's fears in gate. So gate 44 is fear of the future. That's the fear that's tied to that gate. The proper salesman would be like, but if I sell him this, my fears he'll leave me a bad review, and my future will be messed up because future clients will read that review and then they won't come and shop for me. That is how the fear of the future plays out, right? Mm-hmm. So he has no fear of the future. There is no fear because it's not defined in his chart. He kind of has an essence of it in a sense, but not a full, like, okay, I know it's there, but whatever. Anyways, what do I want to do? So there is the gate 26 that's like anytime you have a hanging gate, which means that you're not connected to the other gate, there's always the but. When you have the other gate, it's a perfect balance. They harmonize each other. So not to say that everybody that has gate 26 is like an egotistic asshole and is going to sell everybody a lemon. It's just that, again, it's like going back to what I said with astrology. There's a shadow side to it. So the shadow side of this gate 26, is the egoist, and it's attached to the ego center. And that ego center, if that's a good heart, a good ego, a well-defined, good, nice quality heart, it's going to check itself in that way. But if you have a shitty ego and you're a shitty person and all you care about is yourself, you're motivated by your own desires and what you want, well, what's going to balance that? How can you even think of the other? So when you're selling, you should be thinking of the other, not in yourself. So when we're thinking about Trump as a collective president, I do notice that he has a hard time thinking about the other. Like when people ask him, well, when that plane crashed the first couple of days of his presidency, some of his answers were just like, dude, like, really? Is there heart in there? Does it tick? Are you the Tin Man? He can get so clouded up by what he wants that it's hard for him to even feel, for the collective in a sense. And again, it sucks because his sun is in that 11th house, right? Mm-hmm. Going back to astrology, and he's here to, really like, that's where he's also meant to kind of like, that house is pretty important for him. Oh, it's also important for him because, okay, now I'm going to go back to astrology. So whatever planet rules your rising sign, right? Mine is, like I said, I'm a Sagittarius rising, so Jupiter's going to be my ruling planet. Now I got to go find Jupiter. If it's not in my first house, the planet Jupiter is not in my first house, I got to go find it. Where else is it in my chart? Because now that's how I'm going to play out my purpose. So for Trump, since he's a Leo rising, he's ruled by the sun. Whereas his sun in his chart, it's in the 11th house and it's ruled by Gemini. So his rising sign has to, and it's the house of the world. Is that making sense? I love it because you don't know anything, so you're good to be like the person who's watching, like, huh, really? What did you just say?
So essentially, No, I don't think I understood the last piece, actually. I'm trying to, like, piece it together, but...
I guess the rest of the story of your risings, of your purpose, right? We know that, for example, I think your Venus is in the 10th house, the Taurus rising sign. The planet that rules Taurus is Venus. You don't have Venus, the planet, in your first house. It's not there. You have it in your 10th house. Most people don't have their rising sign planet in their first house. If you do, like, call yourself lucky. But so part of your purpose is going to be these Venus things, but you're going to be playing it out in the 10th house theme, which is about career.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's important to you. It's part of your purpose.
Yes.
For me, my Jupiter is not in my first house. And that's my rising sign because I'm ruled by Sagittarius. Mine is in the 11th house, same as Trump. So for me, my purpose is going to be tied to the 11th house themes. Social media, networking, I have, humanitarian work, I have a freaking nonprofit. So you're seeing my purpose come out in that way. But for Trump, his is more, because you also have to add like the Leo stuff and all that, right? But for him, his purpose is tight, and then his sun's there. So now that makes that house even more, more purposeful. Now, why I'm emphasizing on this 11th house is because that's where we, the world, are showing up for him. So whatever he does, part of his purpose is it's meant to affect us, the world. I'm not shocked that he's a president at all. But what he does is a signature on, we are his 11th house. We are the people that governs that spot for him. Unfortunately, however he plays that out. And, okay, so now we're going to lead into, I think that's all I wanted to talk about for his human design. So, like I said, gate 26, it's called the egoist. It's also called the trickster gate. And, just to reiterate, it's about motivation, willpower, and it's about influencing. Gate 26 is about mastery of influence, sales, persuasion, crafting a message. And if it's not in balance, it will bend to the truth. What are we seeing now?
Oh, man. They've done this, like, before election.
Yeah. It could be very manipulative, and it should be thinking about the tribe, but it can't because it doesn't have that other half to it. He needs to have somebody on his cabinet have gate 44. Hi, you can hire me, but I don't know if I want to work for you. Because he needs somebody to balance that out. If not, it becomes the trickster, Okay. So, and then, gate 44, like I said, the one that he's missing, that's the one that brings that fear of the past, of repeating itself. It brings that awareness of like, hey, you should probably think about this. Do you really want to sell that car? And it brings caution to the table because it's a fear. There's also these fear things, and I mean that's a whole other thing about the spleen center. It's actually a pretty cool one to dive into. So basically, it's going back to my notes here. It's because it's a hanging gate. He can convince others. He can overlook red flags because he's just so caught up in what he wants. One of the things that I didn't like that he said, which made me think about this gate. Literally heard this today from that same clipping from that speech that he did last night at the Republican something thing.
Yeah, the national conference.
Right. Whatever that was. He was saying that he really enjoyed other countries' because today is April 10th, I think.
Yes.
And we just got news, was it yesterday, that he paused the tariffs?
Yes.
Now he paused the tariffs, right? Now he didn't pause it because he cares that much about, I'm affecting everybody or whatever, right? Who knows? That's a whole thing. But anyways, in that clipping, he said that he really enjoyed other countries calling him and basically begging him to lower the tariffs. He really got a lot of excitement from that. And I mean, I'm not, quoting it accurately, but there's a clip out there. You can go back and find it. He literally said that he enjoyed having these world leaders, now we'll go back to the word, the world, 11th house, coming to him and basically petting his ego. Because remember, his ego lives in the 11th house. And so, and then also the gate, 26 would love that. Yes, pet me, love me, tell me, I want to see you crawl. Like that type of stuff. Yeah, it's not good. And that, it's a very persuasive, convincing, and manipulative if it's used in the wrong way.
Yeah.
So that is, and that's just a general, I'm not over, I'm trying to give also when I can good things, you know. Like I said, all of this stuff is great. I'm sure he was, you know, did great. He used it great for his businesses, but I don't think it's great to do for a country where you can cause wars, where you can make people starve, where people can go hungry, where people are being ripped away from things that they needed, were survival, you know, things that tools, creating rifts between societies and countries and even within our own country. So it's different. You know, you can lose a business and you can just get another one. You can't lose a whole country and get another one.
Yeah.
It's so simple as that. Any questions so far?
No, the last part I just had chills the entire time, and then just thinking about like seeing it play out in real time through, I think especially now in his second presidency, I feel like it's more in your face almost, and perhaps it's because this time around he has more of his own like mafiosos in the administration with him that are allowing him to play out these different, the rising signs and the shadow aspects and the human designs and the half gate. Like, I feel like after now hearing all of this, I'm like, oh wow, this makes so much sense. And thinking back to the first presidency, like I felt like we did get some of that, but it was a little bit more controlled, I think, because the people around him were, like you said, they had like the dark side and the angel side and like balancing each other. And I think he had more of like the balance back then in the first term, and now in this term they do whatever the hell they want.
Right. Well, the first term he had a house full of Democrats. Yeah. Now he has a house full of Republicans, so it's like he doesn't have to jump through a whole lot of hoops.
Yeah, they all just.
And he has Elon paying for all his whatever he wants type of things. Yeah, we should look at Elon's chart.
I was thinking that yesterday. Yeah, I was like,
ooh, part 2. Trump's cabinet. That actually would be, I wouldn't mind jumping into that one. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I'm like, okay. When I literally sat down and wrote the outline for this and dove deeper into it, I'm like, oh shit, this is crazy. And it's even crazier because the United States also has its own birth chart, and Trump's chart aligns with that too. Now that is a whole nother episode. But there's a lot of things that I'm like, as just looking, you know, astrology chart, black and white, everything, trying to take out my own, what do you call that, biases, and just reading it as I would anything. And I'm like, this still doesn't sound good. Like, I'm trying to be very, objective in a sense, and it's hard. It's just like everything I'm looking at, I'm like, oh shit, oh damn. Like everything's not sounding great. I guess the last quick thing I wanted to touch on, because it just reminded me, there was another thing about him, that he's very nostalgic. He has some nostalgic stuff in his human design chart. And one of the things that, now that I look at his Incarnation Cross of Eden, is that Incarnation Garden of Eden. Okay, so just think about the Garden of Eden. Yes. Sorry. Anybody who has the Garden of Eden as an Incarnation Cross, at some point in their lifetime, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, but let's just say you do, you were part of that Garden of Eden. So you knew what that felt like to be in this like world of, you know, go pick that apple. You know, beautiful garden. There's kind of an innocence to it, you know? And so I feel like Trump's Garden of Eden, he always talks about the 50s. Yep. The golden age, the golden era. That, I would say, was the Garden of Eden in our modern times. I mean, that is when all the wars ended. Baby boomers were coming, you know, the parents of baby boomers were booming it up and making babies. And Hollywood was at its best. You know, you had Marilyn Monroe, you had all these, like, Hollywood blew up, and there's all this glam, and the Art Deco revival came back, and there's these, you know, beautiful, you know, repeats of that 1920s look, but even more refined, and like that Art Deco came out, and you know, it was like nice. You know, cars were great. You know, United States economy was good at that time for the most part. Moms still worked at home, but you know, it was a good economy for the most part, from what I know, from what I read in history. So he kind of is like, that's his Garden of Eden. And I think that's why he's taken us all back to that time. Now, during that time, doesn't mean that there wasn't an oppression. Just like in the Garden of Eden, doesn't mean that there was not oppression didn't exist. How do you think Lilith came about? you would know about the story, Lilith. Eve, Eve being deceived by the snake. Like there still was some under stuff there. So like back then the Civil War stuff was coming up, for civil rights stuff. There was things, that were still like not good, that we still needed to evolve from. But he's trying to take us back to these conservative ways, these conservative thinkings. Women stay home, cook food, make babies, have sex with your husband, and man, go work and be successful, and also just do whatever the fuck you want, and no birth control. No abortions. Abortions weren't allowed back in those days. So he's taking us back in our 2028 age of 2025, trying to take us back, billions of 75 years back to a time where in his childhood, again, going back to his Sagittarius moon, nostalgia. Like he wants to fulfill that Sagittarius moon of that, like, let me have my rose-colored glasses on and everything looks great. So that's where the Garden of Eden, my husband has the Garden of Eden as an incarnation cross. And I see his Garden of Eden playing out in where he's always trying to create justice for the underserved. He's a public defender. And he always, ever since I first met him, he was so young. He was only like 24 or 25, I think, maybe 25. And, we would have these deep talks and he would always go back to his like, dude, where are you going? And be like, but he believes in this world of like this justice and this innocence. And, so it's like, okay, that's how I see his Garden of Eden playing out, bringing us, our society back to where everybody has justice. Everybody can sit at the table and have a fair chance of whatever, right? But for Trump, it's like, I feel like it's coming out more in like, let's go back to this 50s era. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because he keeps talking about it.
Yeah.
And so that's where this nostalgia comes back and where he's trying to take us all back to that part, which hey, it doesn't sound too bad, but do it right.
Yeah.
And do it in our modern age,
Yeah, I definitely think there's a way to do it for the modern day where like women still have bodily autonomy and voting rights and can be working at home or not working at all, or vice versa. The men will be home taking care of the kids.
Right.
And this nonsense of like a marriage is only between a man and a woman, like it's just taking us back to an age where I think for so many people, like it was great for them because the world was catered towards them. And now we're in this world where we have increased diversity, and not just in terms of demographics, but also like in terms of beliefs, like in spirituality and all of that stuff, and culture. And there are modern takes on it and how to do that. And it's not a one size fits all. The way that it was before then didn't cater. It catered to one specific demographic.
Right.
And now we need those kind of similar concepts to be applied to the modern demographic and modern day and age in society. Because I do feel like it is beneficial. Like, think about like how our kids were taken care of. Like I grew up playing in the streets with our neighbors. And now I don't even know half of our neighbors.
Or how back at that time, Detroit was an economy bursting because it was U.S. manufactured, which I think that's his whole other thing that he's trying to do is bring manufacturing back to the United States. But his plan to go about it isn't really playing out in that way. So that's where it's like, it would be nice to have more things made here in the United States. But like, why did we get away from that in the first place, right? But again, his intent is like, it's not coming from this like smart, logical place. Not to say like we can't bring those things back to the United States, but like his plan for it isn't making sense. And it doesn't sound like it's peaceful, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, this episode's getting real long, so I'm going to power through this transits part, okay? So he
The fire truck's passing by.
Right. He's done?
With a big howl and a tiny little dog.
Okay, be quiet. Okay, so we're going to break down the transits for Donald Trump. So the biggest transits that we're all going to go through, just in general, I'm just letting them out right now. We're all going to feel this. And you'll know how it's going to play out for you based on your astrology chart and based on the house that rules these zodiac signs. We just had Neptune move from Pisces into Aries. So For Trump, Neptune was in his 7th house, and now it's moving into his 8th house. Ooh, that is no bueno for him. Wait, hold on. I'm like trying to acquaint myself with his astrology chart. Okay. Huh. So he's moving. Okay, anyways. So Neptune is going into Aries, and it's going into his 8th house. So his 8th house is kind of it's the house of other people's finances. Mm-hmm. It's also the house of death. So there's some stuff that's going to be going on for him. Not saying that he's going to die, but you know, when Neptune's there, Neptune is a sign of dreams and like going out of this world kind of thing. But that's not what worries me so much about him with that transit. I think the bigger transit that I'm kind of looking at is, so right now, Uranus is currently up against his MC. The MC in your chart is your midheaven, which is like your career and what you're known for. This is like, I swear I could not even like make this shit up. Uranus is the planet of big change. Big like, woo, you were known for one thing today and the next day you're known as something else. So I'm not shocked that he went from, you know, being a typical citizen, right, to being the president of the United States. That's a big shift for anybody, right? So Uranus, and it's at 25 degrees today. His MC in his natal chart is at 24 degrees and it's in Taurus. Uranus moves slow, so this tells me like probably in March it probably was at 20, they're both probably at 24 degrees. So that means that his social status was going to change. Big, right? Crazy. Because anything that Uranus touches, it's like a big change, a big innovation. And also, because it's also part of his reputation, MC is what you're known for in your reputation. So the MC reputation, it is all about, I'm trying to pet my dog because she's in the bar because there's like sirens. Anyways, let me get back on track. Okay, so reputation. So Uranus going up against his MC and his reputation, it means his reputation is going to be like, nobody knows what to think of him. Like, what? Uranus is like the tornado planet. It's a planet that's like, whoa, well, I thought this one day and the next day and now I'm thinking this and then now you're this and then now you're, you know. So his reputation is all over the place. That is very much a Uranus conjunct the MC signature. Now, the thing about his Uranus, it's going to be changing signs this summer and it's going to move into the house that has his Gemini in it. And so that Gemini, you know, moving in, it's what you call it a Uranus return. And so Uranus return is basically where Uranus comes back to the same point as you were born. And in order for that to happen, you need to be about 82 years old. Mm-hmm. Most people don't even live to be 82. To have their first, you only get one Uranus return because Uranus takes 84 years to come back to its place. But he's not 84. I think he looked it up. He's 78. But it doesn't mean that that energy's there. When Uranus return happens, and since it's going to be coming up against his sun, pretty much coming up. I think I looked it up. In 2029, it'll be coming right against his sun. So that could mean a couple of things. It could mean lights out. It could mean he gets another status change.
Oh, don't tell me that.
I know. It's going to be one of two things. And then I was also looking at where his Jupiter's at that time. And he's also going to have a Jupiter return. And I was like, oh, this doesn't sound good.
Does that mean we're going to get him 3 times?
Initially I was like, probably not. Because that change could be like, yeah, you lose, right? Because you were this for so many years and then now you're going to be that for so many years. But the only thing I'm not, and I have to dive deeper into this, I just looked at it really quick. Because I saw that he's going to have a Jupiter return. And when you have a Jupiter return, that means good things happen to you. Ugh. And, you know, that's like, woo, positive things, right? But it could also mean, that because he's also having a Uranus return and a Jupiter return, sometimes having too much of something isn't a good thing. So I still need to play on that. I need to look at the other aspects and all that stuff. But if it happened, blame that damn Jupiter return. So Jupiter, when it's going to go into Gemini, which will happen this summer, he has a couple things in Gemini. He already has his sun. We talked about that. He has his North Node. And then he has his natural Uranus placement in that sign of Gemini as well. So currently he has a transit of Jupiter transiting his, so that, to me, that's why I felt like, okay, that made sense. He got luck and blessings with winning this presidential election anything that Jupiter, any house that Jupiter touches is like poof, blow up, and it's in his 10th house right now, which is house of career. So he's getting blessings right now. Now, like I said, Jupiter's going to move out of that, but then Uranus comes in. So for him, I feel like when that Uranus goes into his Gemini house, it's going to be very, very, very interesting. I feel like we're all going to go through it with him because, like I said, it's in the 11th house. So we're all going to go through this whirlwind of craziness. Whatever he goes through, he's dragging us with him. So put your umbrellas, get your umbrellas out. And then once it hits his north node, that can also be very, very, very shit. Like anything the north node touches in contact with, it's powered up. So I just feel like, I don't like saying this, but I feel like there's a war looming. It could be a war, tariff war. This also reminds me of like the Cold War back in the 80s. Doesn't mean that we might have a physical war, but there might be some sort of war. I feel like right now we're going through this fucking war on tariffs. Nobody's labeled it that, I don't think. But that's what I feel like it's going to be written down in the history books. And then with Aries and that Neptune moving into Aries, every time Neptune moved into Aries, there was some sort of war that happened in the past. And then it's in this 8th house, which is the house of endings. It's an auspicious house, it's the 8th house. So for him, yeah, there could be a lot of things could go a lot of ways. You know, when you have a Uranus return, that also can mean, you know, sometimes you have issues with your health. And also because this is the biggest thing that, if we're just going to talk about health.
Yeah.
Health. His health might take a decline. I can definitely see that signature for that because it's in Gemini. And, you know, Gemini rules the mind. So when you have Uranus coming to the mind, dementia. Wait, what happened? What are we doing? Confusion. What's going on? So I think that his mental health might take a decline or will go through some sort of shifts and change unless he gets, I was going to say a worm in his brain. Like his
Starlink in his brain.
Yeah. Or unless Elon makes some sort of chip that goes in his brain and that he doesn't get dementia. But that could be a signature for that. So yeah, so there's definitely that. Some major shifts in his career and his perceptions, social groups and alliances. He might even get more of a following or he might lose a following. Uranus is very, like, erratic, you know? He might have followers turn against him, or he might have a full-on, blown-out cult. But it's going to definitely be a big thing that's going to happen. And then he's going to have sudden shifts in his communication, so I can see that. And I can see it already. He's already all over the place when he talks. And then him having a Uranus return. Uranus also represents rebellion. It represents, it is that. If you would say rebellion, I would say that would be it.
Yeah.
I feel like we might have to turn this into a part 2 because this is turning into a long episode. We're going to turn this into a part 2.
Okay.
You guys we just made that call right now. So this is behind the scenes for all that. Anyway, so Uranus return, it signifies rebellion. And it being in that Gemini, it could feel very rebellion. It could, signify civil war or us rebelling against him, sort of say. Or the world rebelling against us. I mean, if I'm talking about it from a leader standpoint, because he's our president. So, that doesn't look fun. And then, let's see, there's a couple things that I noted, like his Mars return, that's a big one for people. It's an energetic news cycle, but it's going to be coming against his natal Pluto, which is very intense. So that can be very intense for anybody. When you have a Mars return, that means like you get heightened Mars things. So things of anger, aggression, conflict, war, Mars rules those things. And so when you have it return back to your natal placement, you might get themes of that. Themes of, people being mad at you. You being agitated. Health problems, more inflammation. For him, might be more inflammation in the brain. But he's basically going to go to that pretty soon. So all these things are happening over this summer. Because all of these signs that I'm talking about are changing signs this summer. And they've been in signs for a while. So it's going to feel like a whole new energy. So basically when the summer rolls around, we're all going to go through a shift. But for him, this shift is bigger because he's having some returns coming up. For example, like that Mars return, he's actually it's coming to his natal point. Or it's going to be coming into the same houses where those planets are, and he will eventually be having returns. So anytime, you have, let's say, like, because your Uranus is in the 11th house, and then you have, for him, it's at 17 degrees, I think. Yeah, 17 degrees. Now, Uranus moves fucking slow. It's going to take 4 years for it to get to that point. But even when it moves into that house, like if you're looking at the chart and it moves, you know, it's already right here, but it's going to cross over pretty soon by the summer. Now that whole house kind of feels it. But it gets more and more intense the more that Uranus moves closer and closer and closer to it. The energy just gets more, it's like a momentum, like a buildup. When it's at least 8 degrees away, you would call that a conjunction, and that's when you feel it intense. And then when it's a full degree by degree, 17 degrees, the transit is 17 degrees, and if his natal Uranus is at 17 degrees, now they're talking to each other, and they're like, oh, I see you, let's blow this shit up. So it's gonna be crazy. I don't like a lot of this stuff. Saturn's gonna be going into the 11th, Saturn's gonna be going into Aries as well. So with that said, there's a lot of stuff that's gonna be changing. So for him, it's gonna, this is another thing, because it's in Aries, and for him, if it's in his ninth house, it's about legal matters, culture, diplomacy. And Aries rules war, conflict. So we're gonna get a lot of that this summer. We're going to see the beginning of it. So take note this summer, because this is just the beginning of what could happen. And just prepare yourselves. Prepare your mind mentally. Prepare your body physically. Prepare strategy for things to just be different and unique. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because of this Uranus energy, and he has a strong Uranus in his chart. He has a strong Uranus in his chart naturally, and he is our president, he's leading us, he's in our country. And then also, just to go back to the United States, is also having a Uranus return. Mm-hmm. So he is the one that is meant to lead the United States through a Uranus return. And he has his own return. For me, it makes sense because I'm talking astrology right now. But for those who are listening who are not familiar, like Miss Valerie, what that means is the United States is having its own Uranus return. Yeah. So it makes sense that it would call for a leader to go through that at the same time, to lead that. Mm-hmm. Not to lead it, or to stir the pot for it, pretty much. I don't want to say he's going to lead, like, in a good way. Like, oh, he's our leader. It's more of like his energy is going to get us to that point.
Yeah, I don't like saying this either. But I told Chris, I'm like, there's two things. I'm like, either we're going to see a war. My concerns is that it's a global war again, or that the government's going to fall. And we just won't have it anymore.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, fun times.
Yeah, fun times. And astrological wise, a lot of these placements too, just the signs, take out Trump's chart. You know, anytime we went through, the United States had a Uranus return, we went through revolutionary wars, we went through civil wars. We went through American Civil War. At one point, we went through a civil war. So this is something that's been in the past. Anytime the United had its own Uranus return, it's like every how many years. And the Neptune and Aries stuff too. The last time that happened, we also had, wars happen. And I don't like to say, fear monger or anything like that. I'm just talking from what I'm looking at in astrology and what's been in the past. So that's where I'm coming from. I definitely don't want to go to war. I don't want to have a war. I don't want to have a lifetime where I'm in a war, or where my children are in a war. I would like to be in the stars by the time that happens. And my children as well, and their children. But at the same time, it's there. There's some stuff that's there. It's all in the stars. It's there. So I would just say, don't be too naive right now. Don't think that these things cannot happen. Don't think that we cannot have a World War III, or that we cannot have genocides, or that we cannot have what happened in World War II with Hitler and, all that stuff. My hope is that that doesn't happen, but because I like to think of astrology as the shadow side of it, or the positive side of it too, and maybe we all do have this rebellion, but we all come together and we stop it, and we get it before, it builds momentum, and we, it could be that too, right? And there's nothing wrong with fighting, to be honest. It's just that when it gets nasty and ugly, there's nothing wrong with speaking your truth. There's nothing wrong with revolting. It's just that if it could be done in not such a disruptive, crazy, hurting way.
Yeah. We need to take a page from the book of France and how the French protests are. Man, they let the government know when they're not happy.
Yeah. Yes. And when I was in France, there was a peaceful protest going on, and they had the cops there, and the cops stayed off to the side. They were just there to be like, nobody fuck up. but they weren't like aggressive. They just, and it wasn't, I think it was a protest about South Korea. I mean, I'm sorry, North Korea. It wasn't even like a protest about like France or anything like that. But it seemed peaceful, and it was, you know, in a public area, and we were the ones that were all freaked out. Like, oh my God, there's cops, what's happening, what's going on? Because anytime we see that, we're like, oh shit, you know. But in other countries, they're like, yeah, have a protest, that's fine. And the cops aren't seen as a threat.
Yeah.
You know, the difference in the United States, cops roll up and you're like, oh, who's going to get a beat down? Or who might get shot? All the people of color are like, oh damn, I gotta hide. So, anyways, that is a nutshell in the sense of just the summer forecast of this year, 2025.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Espiritu Coffee Chats.
We hope you enjoyed our conversation and found a little inspiration to take with you.
If you loved what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform.
And stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more.
Until next time, keep the spirit alive and the coffee brewing. Cheers!
Cheers!
Ow, ow, ow!